We will let everybody in. All right, here we go, peoples. Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Colleen Stovall, and I'm the Director of Programs and Events for AIA Miami and the Miami Center for Architecture and Design. If you could just keep in mind, I'm sure you heard this a million times before, but keep your audio and your video off. It'll help with our bandwidth. And then, as we always do, if you have any questions at any time, throw them into the chat feature and we will get to them at the very end. If we don't have time for that, I'm going to put our panelists on the spot and see if they would agree to, if we sent questions, if they would agree to answer questions for our audience. And other than that, I just have a few quick events coming up. Obviously, this one here, we're so glad all our panelists are with us. We have a networking happy hour. If you have registered for this, look for an email with the new location. Apparently, we have a giant crowd and the old location does not fit everybody. So look for an email with the networking happy hour, new location in Coral Gables. We're really excited to revisit this project from Atelier May, a house in the garden in West Coconut Grove. It's a very rare thing, new construction with wood in Miami. So we're going to revisit the house. It's almost completed in West Coconut Grove. There's only a few spots left, so please register. We're really excited for this wonderful project from Miranda Lash, and there'll be a conversation on their Art Deco inspired project Thursday, May 26th at 6:30. And we're really excited to be hosting this South African architectural firm with this exhibit Light Space Life from Sayota, opening on June 1st. The Emerging Professionals Awards, EP Awards, are going to be held at the Barnacle Historic State Park on June 16th. Check out the website and you can get tickets, and we're still looking for some sponsors if you're interested. Deadline for that, I believe, is coming up soon, so go on the website and look for the deadline if you're applying. Our wonderful and very unique summer camp. The AIM summer camp starts Monday, July 11th. It goes through the 22nd. Check out the website on AIA, AIAmiami.org for details or to register your child. There's only a few spots left, so if you were thinking about it, go ahead and register the kids. We're always looking for tour guides for our downtown Miami historic architecture tours, and we'd love to have anyone who's interested in doing that come for some training and help with tours. And that's all I have right now. And I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Vice President of the Miami Center for Architecture and Design in AIA Miami, Cheryl Jacobs.
Hi, everyone. Glad to see you all. I'm happy to have Mark Marine cloned 3 times for this program. But I'll be turning it over to the committee very shortly. Uh-oh, Mark, your boss is on. You better, your boss is on.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So, hi, everybody. I'm really excited to see the progress of our wonderful Housing and Mobility Committee that has been working to create this programming for us throughout the last couple of years. Mark Marine, who is here, Sandra Suarez, Tim Blair, and Hernan Guerrero. And we've been working with other of our partners, with the county, as well, in trying to have our discussions about our issues with affordability here in Miami. So we're continuing on with that, and great job, you guys, and I'm happy to see such a great crowd today. So let me turn it over to Mark Marine, who heads the FIU by Design program and is one of the chairs of our committee. So Mark, take it away. And please let me ask if there are a few of you that are not muted, please do so. Randa, thank you.
Great, thank you, Cheryl, and good morning. Actually, good afternoon to everyone joining us on the East Coast, and of course, good morning to everybody joining us from the West Coast, particularly Los Angeles. Today's panel discussion focuses on accessory dwelling units and is in reaction to the ongoing crisis in the rental and housing markets, especially here in South Florida. The World Property Journal recently rated the top 10 metro areas with the fastest rising rents year over year. And Miami was ranked #1 with the biggest rent price spike in 2021 of 35%. Bloomberg reported US rent inflation hits new high, led by Miami with a 39% rate. The Sunbelt surge in Miami sees year-over-year increases of 38.6% in January. And the New York Post stated, US rent prices are at the highest in decades, and they aren't coming down. Daryl Fairweather, the Post chief economist, added, rising mortgage costs push more potential homebuyers into renting instead, which pushes up demand and prices for rentals. He then concluded the article by stating, ultimately, if we want to see rent prices come down, we are going to have to build more rental units. Everybody here in Miami knows that we have a stock shortage. We are hundreds of thousands of units below where we need to be. And the problem is just multiplicating, unfortunately, exponentially. We need to do something immediately, and we need to try to find a solution. As mentioned in previous presentations, the goal of all of our panel discussions is to really create actionable items to help move the needle. Today's panelists include a local land use attorney, a Miami-based firm that recently completed a container home under the City of Miami zoning code, Miami 21, and 2 Los Angeles-based firms that have continued to push the boundaries of ADU design, materiality, exploration, and implementation. With that said, I would like to briefly introduce our panelists prior to the presentations. Mr. Ben Fernandez is a partner and shareholder at Urco, Radell, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapanes. Ben has been active for more than 30 years, helping to transform properties throughout Miami-Dade County and the City of Miami by representing landowners, institutional clients, and developers on land use and zoning matters. His practice covers local and state real estate permitting and licensing, zoning, site plan, and other land use approvals, amendments, and zoning code, local comprehensive plans and master plans, due diligence, reviews, concurrency, public-private partnerships, and environmental matters. He frequently serves as counselor on matters requiring due diligence with respect to complex county and municipal regulatory regimens involving zoning, land use, and development matters. Ben has been named as one of the best lawyers in America for the past 4 years, recognizing his role as a leading land use attorney in the City of Miami. He was appointed to serve the City of Miami Housing and Commercial Loan Committee by the City Commission in 2009 and holds the position to this day. His practice specializes in land use and zoning law, litigation, zoning approvals, due diligence reviews, concurrency, and others. Thank you for being here today, Ben. We also have Marcelo Ertogay and Sarah Valente of StereoTank. StereoTank is a design and art practice founded in 2009 in New York City by Marcelo and Sarah. The studio works as a laboratory for the design and creation of architectural artifacts, immersive installations, hybrid objects, and instruments, often using repurposed materials and prefabricated systems. Marcelo and Sarah hold a degree in architecture from the Universidad Central de Venezuela in 2005 and a master's degree from Columbia's University Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation. After spending 10 years in New York City, working as artists and collaborating with cutting-edge architectural studios, they moved to Miami in 2017, where they currently teach at Florida International University School of Architecture. StereoTank recently completed a shipping container house prototype in Miami and is proud to be one of the first ones of its kind approved by the city. Their work has been part of the Armory Arts Week in New York and exhibited at the Center of Architecture and the Architecture and Design Film Festival in New York, at the 11th Sao Paulo Architecture Biennale in Brazil, the Center for Contemporary Art in Bedminster, New Jersey, the Dash Gallery in New York City, Museo Alejandro Otero, and Museo de Arte Contemporáneo in Caracas, Venezuela. They have been invited to lecture at the University of Oregon School of Architecture, Museo Nacional de Arquitectura in Caracas, the new School of Design Parsons in New York City, Florida International University, and the Brooklyn Pechacucha. Today, thank you, Marcelo and Sarah, for joining us. Today, we also have Erla and Trigby from the Ninarc Group. Morning. The Ninarc Group is an award-winning design studio recognized internationally for its unique approach since 1999, one which embraces contemporary design and employs innovative materials and technologies while adhering to sustainable practices and design standards. Principals Erla and Trigby draw inspiration from the unassuming and austere beauty of their native Iceland, the land of fire and ice. Erla and Trigby are also founders of MCAD, a prefabricated panel system created in 2007 that was thoughtfully developed in reaction to the limitations and risk inherent in traditional wood framing. As an eco-conscious alternative, MCAD is simpler to build with more durable, energy efficient, and is far better for your health. As Los Angeles residents, Erla and Trigby grew deeply concerned with their city's housing crisis, as well as the enormous waste associated with construction. In 2016, the duo created Plushus, an accessory dwelling unit firm for people who want to make a difference from their own backyard. California's recent regulatory change now allow homeowners to more easily add ADUs to their property. Plushus is a simple, efficient, multi-purpose structure designed as an environmentally responsible space while increasing property value to the client's homes. With values founded on integrity, dedication to clientele, and an unconditional commitment to the highest quality in the implementation of projects, Erla Construction was founded in 2018 by Erla as a woman-owned full-service general contracting firm serving the Los Angeles area and a forerunner in the interests of sustainability. Recent Ninarc Group accolades and accomplishments include, but are not limited to, Interior Design Magazine's Best of the Year Awards, AIA-LA Residential Architecture Award, Architectural Master Prize Award, Best of the Best Product MCAD 2021, AIA-LA's Architectural Design Awards, ADU Design, the Plushus, Build Design Awards, winner of California Most Innovative Design Studio, and many others. Thank you, Erla and Trigby, for joining us. We also have here Rebecca Rudolph from Design Bitches. Good morning, Rebecca, and thank you for joining us. Design Bitches was founded with a bold and irreverent vision to make architecture significant in daily life. Their collaborative and multidisciplinary practice draws inspiration from their love of nature and expertise in the areas of design, art, and pop culture. They excel at the exploration of intersections of architecture and interior design, spatial and graphic design, the natural and built environments. Each design transforms a collage of influences into architecture that is beautiful and layered with meaning, but also welcoming. Spaces and landscapes where people want to hang out. They have been recognized with multiple awards from the AIA-LA, shortlisted for the Moira Imel Prize for Emerging Architecture, and selected as the 2017 recipient of the AIA-LA's Emerging Practice Award. They have co-taught at distinguished universities as a visiting faculty at the University of Oregon and have lectured at Columbia, Yale, Cal Arts, USC, UCLA, and George Washington University. Their work has expanded from highly social commercial spaces to include places to live life in all its diversity. From urban infill offices to single-family homes, adaptive reuse or derelict commercial buildings, and renovation of historic landmarks. As native Californians, Catherine received her MArch from SciArc and her BR from University of Oregon. Rebecca received her MArch from SciArc and a Master of Philosophy from the University of Paris. So thank you to all of our panelists for joining us, and I look forward to having a great panel discussion at the end. At this time, we're going to open up the presentations, and we're going to start with Ben. And part of the idea of the presentations, Ben, with you starting first, is to see if you could give us a a true lay of the land, if you will, on what the ADU issues here are in Miami, what's allowed, what's not allowed. You know, looking at Miami 21, looking at Dade County building and zoning regulations, what are the items that are not allowing this to occur at the moment, and what are possible solutions?
Right. Well, thank you, Mark, for having me here this morning, and thanks to everyone. I'll try to give you a general overview of how I see the problems here locally, and really, I think that they emanate from the fact that we are a young city. We're a young city, was never expected to grow as quickly as we have grown. I think Tampa and Jacksonville were both anticipated to be the faster growing cities with a deeper natural port. And Miami has sort of fallen into becoming a major worldwide city. We don't have a transportation, a mass transit system, really a significant one. And so we have one train that takes you from north to south. And it was built years ago without much planning, so that the train in many instances runs through low density single family neighborhoods. What has happened recently as a result of our explosion in density, as well as the lack of affordable housing that we have as a result of the increase in land prices and gentrification of a lot of areas within the urban core and near the urban core that weren't really in high demand previously. What has happened is that the county, for instance, has begun to try to redevelop their RTZs, their rapid transit zone systems, where they do allow micro units and not ADUs. Let me just say there's a difference between a micro unit and ADU. Obviously, a micro unit is a unit within typically a multifamily structure that has a minimum size of like 260 feet, whereas an ADU is a detached unit that is leasable to someone that is not a family member. Right? It's typically like what they refer to as a granny flat, something that is within the same lot as the main house or the main unit, and can be leased to someone else. In the city of Miami, some of those things existed because it's an older city, and that was the style of architecture where you had a larger house with a cottage or a granny flat in the back. So to the extent that there are neighborhoods with those types of units, the Miami 21 code, which is our new urban code, has recognized those and zoned them as T3L. So the T3L zoning designation allows a secondary ADU by right. The problem in Miami is that the T3L zoning district only exists in a few small areas where some of those older neighborhoods that had those homes to speak of. And that's really the problem with the Miami 21 code. Many have said is that it was overlaid onto an existing city, and it's more of a kind of a reflection of what's already there rather than a planning exercise to create ADU areas or micro unit areas where they don't exist. So there are efforts now to try to create these areas where they don't exist, and there are all kinds of political conflicts that ensue, as you might expect, because these areas are many times near single family areas, and single family areas are objecting to for instance, the parking reductions that are always required to accommodate ADUs or micro units. In Miami, it's commonplace for people to have multiple cars in one home. We're a car-dependent society, and so when you include an ADU in a single-family area or detached unit area, there's a heightened demand for parking. And what has happened is that, you get neighbors complaining. And we have a very, we don't have a strong mayor system of government locally. We have district commissioners that control their areas, like wardsmen maybe in, north in Chicago, New York. And they're very responsive to the complaints of their neighbors. And so, for instance, recently what has happened is the Miami, without getting into micro units and ADUs, just generally speaking, the Miami 21 code allowed for parking reductions of up to 30% through an administrative process called a waiver, and up to 50% actually by paying for the additional 20% reduction. Recently, as a result of complaints, overspill of parking into residential areas from these developments that have come into place along our corridors that don't have sufficient parking, the city commission has dialed back this parking reduction, and said that now you have to go before a hearing, a quasi-judicial process, in order to be able to obtain a parking reduction. This is viewed by most planners as a real step back, because parking reductions are essential to creating ADUs and micro units. So I think that, that is a big challenge. How do you park these types of products? In Miami Beach, when a lot of hotels were converted to condominium units or condo hotels, the city, developed municipal parking lots, shared parking lots. People could walk to them, and certainly that's, I think, a potential solution. I don't think it's been discussed much. It's expensive. We have a Miami Parking Authority that builds parking lots. Wynwood is an example, where it's worked. We have the Design District where there's another one. So in those areas that benefit from that kind of parking, you may see, I think, more push towards creating ADUs and micro units. Currently in the city of Miami, you can do a micro unit if you're in a TOD area. But those TOD areas are usually, they are around transit and not near single family. So in order to sort of spread that use elsewhere, I think there needs to be a solution with respect to parking and transit. There was a study in the county. The county allows ADUs, the comprehensive plan, but the zoning code, this is another problem. We have multiple layers of laws in the county and really in the state of Florida. You have a master plan, and then you have a zoning code. The master plan allows ADUs in Dade County, but the zoning code, which is the more specific regulation, only allows them in TNDs and urban centers. So those are, again, urban centers are around mass transit, not in isolated residential neighborhoods. And the TNDs are like planned developments that have a minimum acreage requirement and require all kinds of other amenities, open space. And, it's something that requires, it's not anything that can take place on an individual lot basis. So it discourages smaller developers from they wouldn't be able to do it. And we don't have large swaths of land left anymore in Dade County. So it becomes an impossibility to even attempt it. And the numbers simply aren't there, at least in the past they haven't been, for larger developers to take that on. I know that Lennar developed Cropsyville, which was a traditional neighborhood development that included ADUs, but not aware of in Dade County of anything else, except for the micro unit type of development within urban centers, like downtown Dadeland is an urban center, for instance. Again, I think the challenges are, how do you reduce parking? There's been talk, there was a report in 2018, a county report that suggested that the Villa Development District, which is a zoning district in Dade County, that it reduce the minimum lot size which is currently 2,700 square feet. This is another problem. Even if you can do an ADU, you have density limitations and minimum lot size requirements for any unit. So, if you have to build on 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, kind of defeats the purpose of creating a very small unit on that lot on a case-by-case basis. So
Good.
those are some of the things that I see. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ben. And those are very telling signs, I think, of some of the issues that we need to directly address as part of the resolution of this issue. So thank you for that. Marcelo and Sara, would you like to, I think you have a presentation as well?
We do.
Yes.
Can I share? Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. So first of all, thank you very much, Mark, the AIA, Miami Center for Architecture and Design for inviting us. We're very happy to be part of this discussion. I wanted to quickly first give you quick show of our background. Sarah can start.
Yeah, hi everybody. A pleasure to be here. We started StereoTank in 2001, doing especially public art and temporary installations in New York City, with a focus on reuse and upcycling, and also public space. In parallel, we worked with a low-tech, cutting-edge firm in New York, doing really interesting shipping container architecture. What we see on screen now, it's an entertainment center and a marketplace in the mountains in China. And another example is multi-family affordable housing in Johannesburg, Africa. And 5 years ago, we arrived in Miami to teach at FIU. And we love the city. We were looking to design a prototype and a home studio for ourselves that was appropriate for South Florida, for the good, the bad, and the ugly of South Florida. We were thinking at first how the shipping container could fit this environment, and what can seem as a counterintuitive solution at the time was for us a challenge and something to explore, as it had undeniable advantages. The shipping containers are part of our landscape, especially here in Miami. They are part of our daily lives, traveling in the sea, in the train tracks, in the road, in the ports, and in multiple container yards throughout the city. Containers sit and they have not really very specific ways to go. They come from China with lots of imports, and we don't export enough to really put them in a move again. So we decided to move forward and start a design of a modular prototype, one that could actually grow over time, and a studio and a family, and the family grows, also the space could grow. The first module we designed according to Miami's building code. We actually made structural calculations to accommodate the following phases, and the project went through permitting. Our most the worry we had was going through permitting as far as structural because of our hurricane resistance design, but it actually went through with no complications in that sense. We had gas comments over structural, and this is the first module. As you can see, there's a screen protecting the exterior that is also buffered by vegetation, and planned solar panels for power in the roof. And we went through different iterations and designs for the screen until we decided for the specific one in terms of incline and density for accommodating to the weather. We're gonna move a little faster.
Okay, so we acquire a land in Miami. This is near the design district area. This is a typical Miami lot. It's 5,000 square feet, 50 by 100. We started with after getting the permit approved, we started with construction, site preparation, foundation work, and then laying out the basis for the shipping containers. Shipping containers are structurally whole, meaning they can actually span from end to end about 40 feet. So the structure works as a bridge. In parallel to the site work, we also were looking for the containers to reuse, going to different shipping container yards in Miami and selecting the ones that were more appropriate for this project. Then take them to a shop, do all the container modification, doors, windows, reinforcements, priming, painting, and then getting that ready for delivery. The day of the delivery, 2 trucks, one per container, one big crane to place them in place. This is half of the house, waiting for the other half to come. This is the other half of the house coming in, and both containers together. The same day of the container placement, we had the window installers come and seal the house on the same day, and then afterwards, all the electrical, plumbing, mechanical, wall framing, insulation, wall finishing, drywall, and everything else happened. Then we went on the exterior and started building the screen. You can see here in 2 different times of the day how the screen performs under the sun. It's a huge difference just by touching the steel that is exposed to the one that is not exposed. Is amazing, the difference of the heat. More side work for the driveway, and the final product finished here. Okay, then even though it's we can say this is a micro house because it's about 700 square feet, still is designed in a way that can open up and expand the interior towards the backyard. This is a kitchen, dining, living room, and bedroom in the back. So to close the presentation, we're just going to show a project that we're currently working on. It's a module for the ADU unit. It's a single stack of two 20-footers. And this case is about 200 square feet. And then a double stack of 400 square feet, which is the maximum allowed for ADU units according to the Miami 21 code. This is the drawings for it. We can see in section how the kitchen and bathroom in the ground floor, and then a mezzanine for the bedroom on top. And some renderings on the interior. Looking down. That's it. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Marcelo and Sarah. Great job, especially dealing with Miami 21 and trying to find a way to get that through. And we'll speak about that shortly. Next, we have from our group, Erla and Trigvi.
Hey,
How are you doing? Good morning. Thank you for joining us from LA.
thank you for having us and thank you for the beautiful introduction earlier.
Of course, my pleasure.
So you want us to take the take from California? How we
Yes.
approached it, yeah.
Well, LA, as you know, LA has a huge housing crisis, both rental issues, which is probably, on the top, I think Miami just recently, beat us in the rental, like last 2 years. And also we have, amazing homeless issues here too, that have been, record breaking for the last 3 years. I moved out here in the 90s, which is kind of, 1990. And that was the first time that we had a train in LA since, I think, since 1900 something, we had a train for a few, for a little bit. And since then, for 30 years, the metro system has been growing. And that helps the city a lot in making, decision to change the zoning and code rules around the train tracks to, add units. And not until 2017, they introduced the California laws, introduced the first ADU laws. And the cities were very confused because the state put that on the cities and required them to allow them. And a lot of cities, small cities, Santa Monica, for example, here didn't really like this because they thought this would be, would be a trouble, traffic and other things that they were not prepared for. And since then, 2017, that's been 5 years, there have been, multiple changes. They have, micromanaged this, parking, of course, like Ben mentioned, was a big issue and big hurdle. And since then, things have really, I think the city has really adopted to it. It's been easier. People are, right now, 5 years later, people are really open for ADUs. Everywhere is asking for it. Nobody has any complaints about it. Every city is, now kind of required, and they have, the plan checkers and to get permits through these are much easier. A lot of cities have put standard programs together that have pre-approved, so you can submit your ADU plans and they pre-approve them. So that cuts a lot of time out, both design part of it and plan checking, all these city times that is cut out. And more cities are adding those into the programs, which is great. Yeah, I mean, how they started for us is just kind of similar like everybody else. When this opens up, we knew the problem, and I think as an architect and designers, and we need to kind of tackle the problems, and that's kind of our responsibility. And our figuration was like, what's the best way, and how can we tackle this?
So our take was basically to use our building system, which we have had since 2007, like you said, and which has so many benefits because there's no waste on site nor in the factory. There no mold, no termites, and it does not feed the fire, which fire has actually made many people homeless here in California for years, and is probably just getting worse by global warming. And we created the 16 by 20, 16 feet by 20, like 320 square feet house that fits really well the standard California loft or in the backyard to make it like a standardized. And it's a kit of parts, so to speak. So we just bring it to the site and build it on site. And that we started 2017, right when it was put on, the law was put on the cities, and has only been growing since. Now we are offering micro house, which is 8 by 16, and we have a 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom is coming as well.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you both. We'll get into further questions I definitely have to ask regarding things that you went through in order to help establish that. We're gonna have really quick Rebecca from Design Bitches present as well. Rebecca, I know you have a hard stop coming up as well, so I appreciate your time in being here. Let us know if you need to screen share or if there's anything that you need from our end.
Yeah, I want to screen share. Let's see, I was hoping I could share just a PDF. Let's see if this works.
Yes.
Good. Okay, so thank you for inviting us to be a part of this. I'm just going to give a brief intro to Design Bitches. We are a small firm. There's 8 of us. We're a multidisciplinary firm, so we work on a lot of different kinds of projects, from ground up buildings, both commercial and single family residential, to tenant improvements. We work on retail projects, restaurant, hospitality, workplace, a big range. And then we also do graphics, branding, branding integration, and landscape design. So we're interested in sort of design at all scales, and you know, really interested to be part of this panel to learn more about, you know, your zoning efforts in Miami. As Ninarc was just saying, it's been kind of a journey in LA to see, you know, how they've been dealing with housing density. So a little more about us. I won't get too much into our work, but we think of ourselves as excelling at intersections. So intersection between architecture and interiors, graphics are spatial, inside can be outside, and pragmatism can be rebellious. We like to say we're rebellious pragmatists. So we work, you know, within the rules. We like constraints, but we also try to do kind of as much as we can to push the boundaries a little bit. So our explorations into kind of what can be done on the typical urban lot in Los Angeles, and as well as a quest to kind of evolve what the single family home means and make it work for a kind of more flexible, adaptable lifestyle for multiple generations, led us to our contribution to the City of Los Angeles standard plan. So the City of Los Angeles, you know, as they've been changing the zoning laws and allowing for people to create accessory dwelling units, which is, you know, essentially another living space that can be rented out if desired on their lot. They created the standard plan program recently as a way, I think, to try to encourage more people to create ADUs, to try to streamline the process also. So the standard plan idea is that, you know, architects and designers, also manufacturers of prefabs, can submit the plans to the city. They go through the permit process and get approved as a, you know, standard plan, which in theory could be used on any kind of typical lot that's flat in the city of Los Angeles. And the idea is that it would speed up, you know, the approval and construction of these units. So our contribution to this is a project we call Midnight Room. It is just a single story, simple structure that has a kind of open bedroom and a carport that can also be used as an outdoor patio. So we did build one in the Atwater Village neighborhood of Los Angeles. The existing single car garage was torn down, and then we pushed this ADU to the back and created really a series of indoor and outdoor rooms that are designed for 3 generations. So the clients have family that both of them are not from Los Angeles originally. Their family comes to visit often, and they wanted them to have a place to stay. They also both work at home now. A lot of people do. So it serves as workspace for them as well. And really the idea was to mirror the program in the house. So there's a kind of on the back of the house, a bedroom and a dining kitchen on one side. And with the ADU, we did the same thing. So we flipped it. So the public spaces are connected and then the bedrooms are flanking the pool. It's a very simple structure that, you know, using warm materials and natural light kind of help the space feel more spacious than it is, than the small footprint. We focused a lot on how it would feel both at day and night. So the exterior is a deep midnight blue, and at night that kind of blends into the background, and then the interior glows with the warmth of the wood when the lights are on. The views are focused towards, you know, the pool and towards the yard. And really we thought of the whole property as inhabitable. And it does bring people out to use the space, because one of the things that happens in LA and maybe also in Miami is that, you know, people have backyards, but they don't really go into them. And so for us, it's really important to figure out how to make use of that space and how to help people interact and also have some privacy. So we're further exploring kind of the small accessible dwelling unit typology and just playing with, you know, how the proportions and the forms can really affect the way that the space feels and the way that people can live in these smaller spaces. So yeah. And I have a lot more to say about the ADU program if people have questions.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And that was wonderful. And actually, yes, I do have a lot of questions myself. We're going to go ahead and transfer in as well to the next part of the program, which will be the discussion. And one of the things I want to kind of say to everybody here is one of the reasons that I thought it would be relevant to have not just a land use attorney and a local firm, but obviously two firms from Los Angeles, is because, you know, back in 2019, as I was doing my research, I saw that California and LA already had in 2019, that's pre-COVID, that's before all of us were kind of stuck in our houses, right? There are already over close to 15,000 permits issued and approved for ADUs. So the issue and the resolution is already starting, or was already starting to occur, as we're still now trying to figure out, you know, to combat the issue we have here. So a lot of the questions I would have personally, and I'm going to open it up as well to the committee questions and questions that are going to be placed in the chat. But one of the things that I would open up to Trigby, Erla, and Rebecca would be in its implementation of ADUs and allowing for all of this to happen and occur. What were, if you guys are aware of, what were some of the growing pains, if you will? What were some of the obstacles? Because I could only imagine that they're going to parallel a lot of the items and issues that we're going to be facing here in Miami, as well as we try to turn this into something positive.
Okay, let me start with this. Well, like I said, this started in 2017, but California, when California put the laws on, and of course the first problem on one of the requirements, which was kind of interesting, they required city to review the minimum review time for the building planners, or like the city, was 4 weeks. And that was in the laws. And so a lot of, when we started this, I think we started our first one very early in 2017. And that was here in Santa Monica. And it was very complicated for the city. City didn't know how to deal with it. City had a very long lead time for reviewing and things like that. So that was kind of the first hurdle to get this thing through. You know? And also in our situation, which we were pretty lucky, because we had our building system, been going on since 2007. So we have done a few houses in, most of the cities here in Santa Monica with the building system. So we didn't have any issues for permitting on that. But that was another hurdle when we started this. was to introduce and get all the testing and all the things through the city for approval. But that was the kind of our biggest hurdle in the beginning, was kind of dealing with the city and their time of kind of educating themselves how to permit this, and their legal things. I think probably they had to have, the legal team review this before, they, could understand that they were kind of forced to do this, Other things, I think it's been, we've done a couple of houses, small houses for city of LA, which they called Restore Neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And we did that with, they were about 1,200 square foot homes. They were single family homes, but still done with the kind of the same concept and system, kind of all pre-panelized, kit apart homes. So we were very well, prepared when this happened,
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say some of the hurdles have to do with the kind of varied terrain of LA. That's one of the things that our office is on the east side of LA, and it is quite hilly actually. And the codes, especially like the seismic structural code for dealing with foundations and hillside, it can be pretty onerous and incredibly expensive. And so one of the things that we've found lately with being part of the standard plan program, a lot of the people that reach out to us actually are in hillside zones or high fire zones or a combination of those. And so the standard plan won't work. It has to be uniquely engineered for their situation. So that's, one thing that kind of terrain differences, soil condition differences have come into play in LA. There's also some issues with the Department of Water and Power and easements and approvals for encroachment on power poles. So if you're building, for example, a structure in the back of a lot and you're within 15 feet of a pole, you have to get approval from DWP. And the timeline for that has become really backed up now. They don't have enough staff to deal with it. And that's, one of the, there's many things. There's also in some zones that require planning approval, same thing, like there's one planner assigned to a district and that planner has, 1,000 cases. And so it can take them like a year just to get to the project. So that's one of the things that we've been, providing feedback to the city on. The standard plan really only works if you're on, a typical lot and a flat lot in a neighborhood that doesn't have a historical overlay zone and all of that. Yeah.
If I could chime in, Mark, Rebecca, that's so funny. First of all, I gotta say, this is the best architectural name I've ever heard. Congrats.
Thank you.
My wife is an architect too, so I can say that with experience. We have exactly the same problems here in Miami. FP&L is a monopoly. They're not responsive to private developers. They don't need to be. There's no incentive for them to be responsive. We have to end up hiring, lobbyists, a team of engineers, former employees, simply to get their attention. And I'm curious to hear from Marcelo on this, who just built one near the design district or Buena Vista. I can't remember which one, but near there. I'm sure it was T3L because that's the only place where you can do it. And that's the problem. To push it, to separate it from the principal building, you want to put it towards the back of the lot. And inevitably, the Florida Power and Light easements run along the back. And there's a 10-foot separation requirement, as I recall. So if you're going to build a 2-story dwelling unit, you're approaching the wire. It's an issue, a disincentive to development for sure. So that's interesting. There's also the problem here that it has to be the same owner. So if you create the ADU, it's not for any kind of fee simple sale. It's only for rental purposes. And then there's also the problem that I think, as you mentioned, we have the hurricane codes here that require a certain degree of foundational requirements, which make bringing in a shipping container like Marcelo did, very expensive because the foundation permit is the same as you'd have to pull for a home. And so that turns a lot of people off. We talked to a lot of folks that were interested in doing this, and when they learned that they still had to do the same thing that they'd have to do for a home, they said, no, I'll just do a home. I'll turn a greater profit for it. So it's only this avant-garde, architect, if you really want a stylized product, you're doing it more for effect than to solve a housing problem.
One of the things that LA has done, which I don't know if you're looking at or considering in Miami, is you also can convert you can convert a garage or a permitted accessory building. And we aren't really working on those projects because, the amount of work it takes to do it doesn't quite make sense for an architect. But I think there's a lot of contractors doing these design build. And I do actually think that for most homeowners, converting a garage makes sense. It makes more sense financially. It's a lot easier to get it permitted. And I think that to me, that's a positive for the city because a lot of people, for example, are already renting out their garages for habitable space, but they're not to code. They don't have any fire protection. They don't have any, necessarily proper wiring and all of that stuff. So I think that it's kind of a good thing for everyone to allow that. And I live in a neighborhood where there's been a lot of ADUs constructed and garage conversions. I've lived there for over 20 years now, and I don't see any negatives. So there hasn't been an increased parking problem. There's not like a sudden massive influx of people. There's definitely more people. And I think most of them are probably being rented out. And it doesn't seem to be a negative from my perspective as a homeowner also.
So Rebecca, and this goes for everyone, just a question about how to, I guess, change or influence perceptions on ADUs in your neighborhood, especially for you, Rebecca, that are living in a neighborhood that has had, a shift in ADUs and, it's basically part of the neighborhood fabric now. What are the conversations going on in a neighborhood that, influence people in a positive direction?
I think people see them being built, right? And they meet their neighbors who have done it, and then they learn kind of how it happened and how much it cost and, how they're able to rent it out. It seems from what I can tell to be just positive conversations, like kind of word of mouth. Although I haven't really been attending the neighborhood council meetings in a long time, so I don't know. I might not be hearing the negative conversations about parking, which I'm sure are happening. But I think that, people see that it can be done. They see that it can be done in a way that's kind of fits in with the surrounding housing typology. And it may also be because the lots are very long comparatively where I live, that if you do it in the back, for example, you can barely see it in most cases. So you really don't feel it that much. Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting. If I could chime in on that as well, Rebecca. One of the things that I've heard from county planners is that because in unincorporated Dade County, they don't always have a curb and gutter, it's more of a suburban type of development. They have problems with, controlling the number of cars and how the cars park in front yards. In Miami, it's typical for the front yard to be full of cars. But if you're in an older neighborhood, and a lot of them are being redeveloped with ADUs by modifying non-conforming structures. They leave a wall up and describe it as a modification to a non-conforming structure to get around these other code regulations. But where they have curb and gutter, it's easier to control the parking, obviously, because the cars have to park on the street or park in tandem. And it was interesting, Marcelo, how did you address the parking situation with your T3L? Because you had to have 2 for the main dwelling unit and 1 for the accessory dwelling unit. So you've got 3 cars parked on your lot. How'd you do that?
So again, I wanted to clarify because the project started as a single family residence. and we're starting plans for the ADU units. So what we showed is actually a home, but it's a tiny home. Now regarding parking, we accommodated just the 2 vehicles that are required for it.
Okay.
And we haven't really looked into the third for the ADU.
Okay.
Even though, I mean, I don't remember really, but we have, space to accommodate a third if we need to, because the house, the main house is smaller in the footprint.
Okay. Great.
But if the lot was used as it could, in terms of capacity, there would really not be enough room for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a problem. It's just, again, the parking is an issue.
Yeah, in our neighborhood, if you're within, I think it's half a mile of a transit stop, you are not required to have parking for the extra parking for the ADU. And we do have bus lines, on the major boulevards. So that does allow for reduced parking. And honestly, like I said, I haven't seen a change in additional cars. I don't know what that means, but I haven't, if it's happening, it's not noticeable enough to make a difference. Yeah.
So, but with yours, Rebecca, I mean, your neighborhood, it sounds like the influence of the neighbors and the conversation and the neighbors basically being able to figure it out and accepting it in a sense as a community is a reason why there's the ADUs have been successful in your neighborhood, right? It's not necessarily something that's being imposed from the outside, but kind of growing organically from within.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely, I think a lot of the ADUs built in LA are probably being done by developers. So they'll like buy a house, single family house, quickly flip the house, build an ADU, and then sell it because they're increasing the property value. And some of that has happened in our neighborhood, but a lot of it in our neighborhood also is individual homeowners doing it. So that might also be something of a difference. Like I could see if it was more being done by developers, people in the neighborhood might be upset. I think it's just the particular probably price point demographics of our neighborhood make it that it's not really super attractive to developers. So there's some of that happening, but it's more people that have been living there for a long time. And there's also something interesting in our neighborhood because it's multi-generational. A lot of people, they've inherited, for example, the house from their parents. They then convert their garage into an ADU, or they build one in the back and the parents move into that, or they move into that and their parents stay in the house. I think that also has to do with property tax rules. So this may be different from what the property tax situation in Miami. In LA, because we have Prop 13, once you buy a house, your property taxes are essentially locked in forever. It goes up very slowly, but so that means that if you're somewhere desirable, and we're like pretty close to the center of the city, no one ever wants to leave their house, right? So kids will stay in the house that they grew up in, or that, with their parents. And it's partly because of property taxes. And that also allows people to then borrow against their home to build an ADU because they've owned it forever. And for example, they don't own anything on it. So it's been a kind of interesting economy, I guess, of how it's developed.
I want to add one thing about the parking issues, because parking issues are also related to the high rental prices. I mean, it's not unheard of. You have 8 people living in a small unit. They bring 6, 7 cars, and it's true. They end up parking their cars in the front yards and things like that. So yeah, so absolutely, parking is a huge issue, and the solution on that. Some people feel like if you add more units into these areas, which desperately need housing, that we're just adding more cars. But in reality, we feel like if we can, lower the rental rate and get more units in these areas, and people will, with less people living in these units, we'll spread it around a little more.
Agree with that. I think that's a great point, Trady. I also wanted to ask quickly regarding your and Erla's, the M&M mod and that prefabricated system, because it's something that I think may be feasible here if we think of efficiency of economies for these things to be able to be developed. Can you talk about how having that system kind of helped align with creating and being able to create the ADUs? You said you were kind of, the firm itself was aligned with already having these pieces in place for the ADU creation and implementation. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we started that. So we have a building system where we build walls and ceilings out of foam and steel instead of using wood. Wood is really poorly used here and is not always, good in areas where there's fire and by the ocean where there's mold. And so we have a building system made out of foam and steel only, and both recycled materials, 30% recycled, and they're basically assembled in downtown LA. So they are made locally. So our thing was also to get rid of all this horrible waste that is on construction site, and construction site has this huge container in front of it, and 60% of it is filled with scrap wood, which is sad how poorly the wood is used. And so we build it in a 3D model and make shop drawings. We build the panels and we bring them to the site. So we are eliminating all waste, and then they're built on site. And because we had developed that, we used our standardized panels, which we had created for Habitat for Humanity, where we were building with the city of LA, where we were doing restore neighborhoods in LA, and that's when we created those standardized panels. And with those standardized panels, you can build almost anything. And we utilize those panels to create the ADU that we created. But obviously there are other firms that can use the panels and have been in talk with them about that.
Yeah. We've been very successful with other architects, using the panels, and it's very popular up in Northern California, because Northern California has been hit very bad with fire, and because the panels are non-flammable and type 2 construction, which means non-flammable construction, they've been very popular up there. I think 50% of our revenues of the panels comes from San Francisco, Napa, and up in Northern California. It's a great system for Miami too. I mean, it's, of course, it's it's extremely high, our values on these walls. There's no mold issues on this. You can they're easily, of course, it's steel fabrication, so they're very easily modified for hurricanes and things like that. So yes, there would be we had numerous inquiries coming from Miami about the panels, but
great.
We haven't. It's just transportation things and all the things we haven't really solved at this point. We're just focusing on California at the moment.
That's great. Thank you. And the reason I posed the question was to wrap back to Marcelo and Sarah. I know obviously the container is a different system as a prefabricated, but trying to look and understand once again the economy, right, of these systems, and trying to create that within the framework of Miami, understanding construction costs, et cetera. Is one of the questions I would pose to people to think about is what would that ultimate price per square foot be? What would it need to be to make it a viable solution as well here? So I don't know, within your numbers where that rounded out to be or not, but it's definitely a question that we will need to consider.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that so far the numbers I think break even with conventional construction, which is amazing for a system that is not conventional. So what I think is that if it becomes by producing in series, I mean, it could actually be very competitive, I believe. On the other hand, we know of prefab systems that use container parts, new container parts that are made in China, and you can get the same house half or less of the price we pay. However, this is from China, right? So it's like they put it in the balance, right? Do we want to keep that stream going, or do we want to create our own economy here and work it out ourselves? So that's sort of the niche we're trying to open.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mark, you want to go? Go ahead. Sorry, Rebecca.
I was just going to say really quickly, I mean, obviously the one that we designed was standard construction. Purposely, we tried to make it as kind of affordable as possible. That said, construction costs are really high in California right now, and Los Angeles in particular. And so even something that is standard type 5 wood frame construction is going to be, out of reach for a lot of people. And that's something we're running into now too with this standard plan program. Like most people that are inquiring just don't have the funds to actually build it.
Right. So last question, Mark, sorry, just this goes for everyone. Do we have a cost per square foot on all of the systems in terms of just to get an idea of what we're looking at? Do you have those numbers? Construction cost?
Yes, in our case, it's about between 150, 180, which is sort of on the low end of conventional construction, probably. Of course, like in Miami, you can get to 300, 500, so, even like 180 is cheap, right, compared to the rest.
Right, yeah. Our numbers here, 180 is, at this point, it's sought after, right? Unfortunately, with construction prices that continue to soar. So yeah, something to consider.
Yeah, in LA here, we couldn't even, there's nothing you can do for less than 300 plus,
Yeah.
If that budget is not available, then it's, that's something we just can't promise we can do. But one thing, because I'm always kind of going back into the solution and try to give you kind of points at LA and things LA is doing. One of the things LA is also, it's a couple of things that LA has changed in the last couple of years, and recently, now they're offering, because of the high cost of construction, which is the biggest hurdle in this situation. I mean, I think everybody would build their ADUs, and if they have to be very affordable. They're offering grants. They're up to I think 75,000. If you offer it to homeless, and down to like $25,000 if you offer to a low income rental, and then it goes to the housing department and they control pretty much you still get your rental income, but it would be a the control rental for the 10 years, only a 10 years program, and after 10 years there will becomes fully available for the homeowner, which I think hopefully will help some of these areas where really need it, because the situation is happening in this town, and social, just the social aspect of LA is probably the same as Miami. You have, areas in the city that is, really wealthy. They build these ADUs. We're doing a lot of those ADUs in these areas too, but those areas, a lot of them won't come in on the rental market, It will be for guests that come over, because they don't really need the income. They just, excited about an extra space, pool house, a little guest house and things like that. So that's the problem. And really, the area that really need these homes are where the low income, people are located. And the low income people can't afford these houses, they can't build these houses. So, and that's where you have, 8, 10 people living in a small house. So I think that's something that the cities really need to focus on, how to offer these incentives and offer, help financial helps to, to be able to get more of them built in the low income areas. Because it's absolutely right what Rebecca was saying, that the only people that do that are the people that, develop them and they clean them up and then put them on the market. And then the low income person can afford buying that or get into that because first of all, the rent is going to go up so high they can't afford it. And they're still in the same situation. That doesn't help them.
Mhm.
That is a great point, Trigg. And it's interesting. I know I'm running over on time, so I'm going to open it up to the questions and answers soon. But one of the questions the committee was discussing was possible P3s, right? So public-private partnerships on helping try to find a way to subsidize that construction cost initially. And that seems like it's a very viable solution as well. Sandra, do you want to open it up, or is someone going to field the question from the chat, or should I?
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead and start them.
All right.
I think Bryce had a few questions on there. Bryce Bounds.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm going through here. All right. So from Bryce, how do we open up more City of Miami and Miami-Dade areas to having ADUs? Even during the current real estate boom, I've noticed a lot of property in areas being converted from T3L allows ADUs to T3R or T3O does not. T3 is the majority of older neighborhoods and single family areas in core Miami. It's a great question. Ben, would you want to field that one?
Sure. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
there you go. Well, yeah, it goes back to what I was saying that, I mean, the question's exactly right. The T3L is in the older neighborhoods that are more, if you move into one of these neighborhoods, it's because you're okay with the smaller lot and the fact that there are a lot of existing grandfathered ADUs. And even, there have been a lot of illegal ADUs throughout Shenandoah, Little Havana. A lot of larger homes were functioning as multifamily buildings for many years. So if anybody that's moving into these neighborhoods is accepting of that fact, it's less of a political issue. Expanding ADUs into areas that are not traditionally that way is a huge problem. Miamians don't, this is not a big city. There may be people that came from big cities that live here now, and that's changing. But this is a very suburban city that looks like a big city. And that's the thinking. And until the thinking changes, I think you're going to have a political resistance to expanding ADUs. And then there's the transportation problem, until you have a train or an effective trolley system. I mean, we have a cute trolley that goes around town. It's been somewhat successful, but I think, it needs to be improved. It needs to be more interesting to take the train. It needs to stop in places that have mixed use. Mixed use is something that's missing from a lot of our neighborhoods. The ability to walk to a neighborhood serving retail establishment isn't there. And it's something that the comprehensive plan for the county has called for years. I had a hearing last night trying to introduce an office component to an intersection of section line roads, which is where the county plan calls for that. And the neighbors were resisting it. Thankfully we got it approved, but it's neighbors are averse to change, as everyone is. So it's going to take some time and some effort.
Thank you, Ben. The next question is going to come from Mariana Laura, and her question is about how can microhousing be applied into student housing? Can those two things, be compatible? Can you use the microhousing for student housing? Can they be stacked, I guess, is really the question. Can it go vertical? I guess this is more a question for StereoTank, for Sarah and Marcelo.
Well, I think, student housing is for sure compatible with micro housing. It depends on the lot. You are able to get your hands on, and for sure repeating the micro unit in order to get the numbers right. Student housing is actually one of the easiest to design in terms of efficiency, in terms of cost, right? As the bigger the project, the less the amount per square footage ends up being. So student housing is a perfect example of a really great way to put into test this kind of solutions.
I just wanted to add that it's convenient also because one shipping container is pretty narrow to live in. So combining two makes sense. But for a student, one container will be okay, because it's a short amount of time. And what I'm saying is one container is way cheaper than two at the same time.
In the sense that once you join two containers and you create living areas that are wider, for example, for a family, etc., these are the more comfortable spaces. 10 feet, for example, is the minimum for a bedroom. But if, like Marcelo is saying, if your unit can be more flexible, right? The one of a student that spends little time in their house or in their bedroom or unit, if there is more flexibility, then it is for sure something a lot more efficient to work with one single shipping container than two, since the amount of retrofitting or reinforcement or cutting, it's a lot smaller, and it can be also done very quickly.
Okay, thank you. Mark.
The next question is from Andrea. Andrea from Active Design Miami. We are looking at how to promote physical activity and health through design. She wanted to know and to ask how health is considered when designing ADUs. I don't know.
Sorry, what was considered?
Health.
Health.
Health, yes. So I don't know if it's the placement, if it's the mobility, if it's filling maybe that last mile of walking to and from public transportation. I don't know if any of the panelists have an answer for that.
I think health is very important in any building, anything we design, anything we do in life. So I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we did move out of using wood in construction. Well, we grew up in Iceland, but we of course know a lot about wood and all those things. So when we came here, we were kind of shocked to see how treatment of that was done. When we do wood construction in Iceland, it's all done through air ventilation, very airy, free flowing and things like that. Here they're just completely closed off. They're stuck on the outside drywall and the inside. And then if any moisture comes in there, you deal with it in 2-3 years, and you got mold and issues. And any remodeling we do here, we take a house apart, the remodeling, there's huge issues of termite, mold, and things. So it's really not healthy environment if you think about it. It's kind of sad thing to say. We used to know how to build these things. When you take apart house was built in 1900s, when even earlier. Then it's unbelievable how better they are built and how better the knowledge we used to have on construction, and then something happened. I guess we got greedy and we started to just skip skip some corners, and so one of the items we tried to figure out, like, what would be better material also to create healthier environment. And then of course basic term of architecture, you should have light and air and all these elements that all good architects deal with.
So Mark, we have just a couple of more minutes. So if you want to maybe closing words from our panelists. If any of you have a final thought that you'd like to share with us about what we've discussed today, and any of the questions that are left in the chat, we'll try and get answers and get back to you.
Well, I think maybe our closing word is like we just have to, stand together and learn of each other, and hopefully we can make the world better slowly. We all have to think about it. What is the problem? And I think that's our responsibility as professionals, is to see things that we don't like and just don't ignore it, and figure out solutions so we can help out for the rest of the world.
Anyone else? Sarah, Marcelo?
We really appreciate having been part of the panel and learning about what LA is doing, and really from the ones that are in the making. I think it would be really lovely to also incorporate other panels like this with other cities that have been able to achieve, that level. and I think there are so many of us in Miami specifically trying to support the crisis, architects, but also people in all sorts of interdisciplinary areas. And I think we should work from the communities. So it would be really interesting to reach out and see what groups can we form and how these can be pushed through. Not thinking that the permitting and all of that is going to be something that we can reach throughout many years of having to deal with the DOB, but actually wanting to make change quick. Thank you all.
Yeah, I agree with the others, and I have to sign off. So thank you, everyone. And
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Anybody else? Final comments?
I will just step in. I know I've spoken a lot today, but and just obviously first thank all of our panelists for a great presentation and discussion on, as I said, pressing issues. I'm one that always says, we're not about opening the door, we're about trying to kick it in. It's the only way that we're going to implement change. And as Tree said, we all need to be involved, and we all need to make an active choice of creating change for our society and for our communities. So I will also go back on what Cheryl had said. We will try to review the rest of the questions, and I will try to formalize something and have answers sent out as well, if possible. But thank you all for being here. It is greatly appreciated. We've learned a lot, and I think we have a lot of actionable items in which we're going to look into to see if we can hopefully help curb and resolve this crisis.
Thanks everybody for coming. We really appreciate it. Look for a short survey about our programs. We're always trying to improve what we do. And also I will send you the link to this video so you'll be able to watch it again and again. And thank you to all our panelists and our amazing committee. Thank you for putting this together. Cheryl?
Thanks, everybody.
Last words, Cheryl?
No. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.